Not long ago, Respawn did a new Ask Me Anything about the Legend meta, and as you can imagine, a lot of questions were asked about Octane, and a lot was revealed about his next buff. Also, we heard about future crypto buffs, and maybe a Caustic nerf. There's a lot to cover, so let's just jump straight into it, into the first question, where somebody asked Respawn, are we going to see any changes to Octane soon? He's my favourite Legend, but there are so many better options at this point. To which a developer responded, Octane managed to sprint his way into the start screen for this season somehow. And as we go on, Respawn reveal more and more, like in this next question where somebody asked, Octane, why does he still take damage to move fast when so many other legends have gained bursts of fast movement without damage? Do we really think it would break him to take away stim damage? Or could he have a fuel meter instead like Valk, so stim still isn't spammable? And Respawn responded saying, hey, great question. One of those things we want to make sure we preserve going through our refreshes, reworks, and meta balancing is the fantasy, aesthetic, or hook of a character. Sanding down all of the rough bits of a character will definitely make them feel stronger, but it could also homogenize them. For Octane specifically, I feel like he has a component of a risk-taking daredevil, someone who pushes the red line or plays with danger for fun. So the HP cost of the attack is thematically reaffirming, but we don't pay that off later with gameplay that helps you win. There's a really cool design space for a risk-taking character that gets stronger with the less health he has. So to me, this is Respawn hinting that they're not going to directly lower the stim damage, or at least take it away, but they will make Octane more powerful the lower HP he gets. Maybe he goes faster the less HP. It could be a very interesting idea if Respawn explore this. And they may, considering the next question asked was pretty much the same, why is Octane the only movement legend that has a drawback when using his main movement ability? To which Respawn said, as mentioned in a different answer, drawbacks can sometimes tie a kit to a specific fantasy for a legend. Octane, being a living on the edge risk taker, fits with his personality and fantasy, but right now what he pays for what he gets isn't in balance. We're looking at what we can bring in to make that risk taking more worth it, which is going to be pretty cool, and I cannot wait to see what Respawn do with him. This next answer from Respawn actually gives a pretty decent hint to what his changes are going to specifically be, as somebody said, I main Octane, and I'm wondering if there will be any buffs for him soon, as I feel his abilities need a little more love, similar to the recent buffs like Valkyrie, Rampart, Horizon, and Bang. And then this user writes down the buff ideas he has for Octane. I'm not going to read them because they're his ideas. And at the end he says, P.S. please buff Octane. He is the GOAT and give him some of that Valk and Horizon treatment. Also, thank you for cooking with the buffs lately. The Valk and Horizon buffs were really well done and needed, to which Respawn responded, glad you're feeling the recent buffs for other legends. Octane definitely needs the same scope of change to feel the love. When we change him, we'll look to extend his core gameplay rather than just up his numbers, which is the best thing we've heard so far from this Ask Me Anything, because it shows Respawn aren't just going to take Octane, make his stim make him a little bit faster and make it damage him less, and maybe make his jump pad throw you a bit more, but it seems they're actually going to change how his stim works, and if we're lucky, maybe give him some sort of new ability, maybe a new passive, a new ultimate, or a new tactical. So this is great to hear, and it does confirm when we do get these Octane changes, they are going to be somewhat sizable. The next question is a pretty interesting one, as someone asked, what is the reason to rework or balance some legends per season and keep others untouched? Over time, some legends are forgotten, and it creates a meta with a good few legends, but others seem to be outdated and bad in game. For example, Bloodhound is unbuffed, while Valk, Seer, Crypto got buffs and Sparrow strong. Octane is unbuffed, while some legends received movement passives and more speed, and Catalyst is unbuffed, while Watson, Rampart, and Caustic received huge buffs. Why don't you balance all legends every season with at least minor changes to adapt them to the patch overall? To which Respawn responded with, we wish we could touch every legend every season. This purely comes down to time and resources. Making meaningful buffs to legends, not just number tweaks, takes a lot of time. In 2025, we adopted a new approach, trying to buff at least one legend meaningfully at season launch and at the mid-season split. There's a lot of legends towards the bottom end of the power curve that required these larger changes, and just number tweaks couldn't make a huge difference. See Sears spike and fall pretty recently. This is a new approach for us, and these decisions need to be made pretty far in advance since these changes take so long to make and balance internally. We're refining this decision making process and will be more transparent in the new year about who we're picking and why. It doesn't only come down to pick rate, but we also consider how effective that legend is at fighting and more subjective feedback about how frustrating it is to play against that legend. Many factors go into who we pick each season, and we want to share more of that thinking very soon. And to be fair, this is a fair answer. You can't really expect Respawn to meaningfully buff every single legend in one season. It just wouldn't happen. I do not think the team is big enough over at Respawn. You have to realise, not everybody at Respawn works on balancing. Some work on art, some work on the game engine, and so on. There was another question regarding Caustic. Are there any plans to nerf Caustic? He's been in the meta fairly regularly since the Evo perk changes came in Season 20. He's way too strong at the moment, feels awful to fight and die, and the playstyle isn't particularly engaging. To which Respawn responded, just to peek behind the curtain a bit on Caustic, players of different skills have a wildly different opinion of Caustic's health to the game. The higher you go, the less endearing he becomes, but he's still positive overall across the skill bands. We're definitely hearing murmuring of frustrations though, so we'll keep our eye on Caustic so his gas is toxic, but in the right way. Honestly, I don't think Caustic needs another nerf, and he did get an accidental nerf not long ago. At the start of this season, Respawn made a change where Caustic's gas can activate his other gas traps in a chain reaction. Luckily though, in the most recent set of patch notes, they did confirm this is an accident, but I hope they don't nerf him any further. Moving on though, we go back to classes. As somebody asked, are you guys satisfied with the state of controller legends? Considering how handicapped they are in early game, I feel like they could use some love, especially Catalyst. To which Respawn then responded, the controller fantasy is definitely not hitting the way we're intending. Having playtested multiple internal prototypes about the controller class, the rub we keep coming up against is that the more stationary and defensive fantasy is at odds with our core gameplay. Apex's movement is a large part of what makes our game so special, so encouraging players away from that inevitably fails. We haven't given up on it though, and what we've taken away from these prototypes is that it can't just be solved by one part of the game, legends, maps, weapons, etc., and we'll need to make a collaborative change to breach the problem. So from this, it seems like Respawn definitely aren't happy with controller legends, and they're literally playtesting new ways to do controller legends, but they just can't seem to fit the defensive and stationary campy playstyle of defensive legends into the game. I'm interested to see where this goes, and I guess it does kind of confirm that Respawn do have controller legend changes coming in the future, if they can work them out. Here's a pretty interesting answer which may have considerable changes on the base gameplay of Apex, as Respawn received a question saying, considering that Caustic and Wattson haven't been nerfed significantly, in addition to legends like Valkyrie and Rampart receiving quite substantial buffs, is this a sign that moving forward, legend abilities are intended to have a higher overall power level than previously? To which Respawn responded, one piece of feedback that's been extremely consistent for the entire time I've been here, and likely before, is that a large number of current and potential players want our legends to be more impactful without invalidating gun skill. People see a game like ours with legends and bring in a lot of expectations from other games they play. When we don't fulfill the hero fantasy, players that were looking for that gameplay can bounce off. So the short answer is, yes, we're looking for legend abilities to be more powerful and impactful in a way that works for Apex. And I guess we saw this with some recent changes. Like, Valkyrie's recent buff clearly shows that Respawn want abilities to be a lot more powerful, but I guess at the same time, Respawn don't want an ability based game where we're killing each other with abilities, and the abilities are more of a tool in our toolbox where our gun is our main weapon. Moving on to Crypto though, somebody asked, any plans to update Crypto to be more relevant in the meta? I have an idea of an ultimate that allows him to use his drone ultimate while on his body, so like a suicide ultimate, and Respawn answered, Crypto has been getting drip fed buffs slowly and they've helped, but we've never really got him all the way. In his current state, he's nearing the best possible version before we look at larger systematic changes to his kit. So at least the way I interpret this is that Respawn want to make him somewhat viable with his current kit before they maybe give him like a new ability. Maybe I'm misreading all of this though. And those are the most important answers from this Ask Me Anything, and it does luckily give quite a window into the development. I'm really looking forward to the mid-season Octane changes, and they're probably going to be announced soon. So if I was you, I would subscribe and also like the video.